Hello YouTube, hello Minds.com, it's Tuil Schmiel here, also known as Divided and Conquered. I just watched a video from a channel on YouTube called FFR News, Mr. Tom Anderson. Really a thought-provoking video. It was basically about how feminism has made women unhappy. And I just have so much to say on it, I couldn't fit it all in the comments section, so I figured I'd make a little video. The first thing he was talking about is mental health and women. He said something about 25% of women report that they have mental health issues. I have something to say about that, and it's my belief that I wouldn't put too much stock into that. Because number one, I think mental health issues are overdiagnosed these days. Okay? I don't know if you guys ever heard of a thing called the, Rosenhan experiment. In 1973, there was a doctor by the name of Rosenhan, David Rosenhan, and he sent a bunch of people into, this far back, 1973, mind you, he sent a bunch of people out to see psychiatrists and to tell them that they were hearing things, specifically the word thud. And a lot of them got committed, even though they were perfectly sane. The psychiatrist had no way to determine if they were sane or insane, but just based on what the individuals were telling the psychiatrist, they deemed a lot of these people to be insane, and they were committed to institutions. As a matter of fact, Dr. Rosenhan himself had to go around and get these people back out, because even though they protested while in these institutions, they didn't believe them. Because, hey, what crazy person doesn't say he's normal, right? It's like everybody in prison is not guilty. And imagine that nightmare. Being in a mental health institution, being perfectly sane, and them keeping you there against your will because some doctor says that he's determined you're not mentally stable. Keeping that in mind, today, any normal person with any normal everyday life problems goes into a psychiatrist and explains to them that they're having a tough time. It's overdiagnosed because these psychiatrists want to push drugs from the pharmaceutical companies. There have been many pharmaceutical representatives to psychiatrists who sell the drugs to the psychiatrists who have come out and blown the whistle and told about how these things are overdiagnosed and how psychiatrists have special interest in pushing certain drugs. They sign up with a pharmaceutical company and they push their drugs exclusively or a group of drugs exclusively, and they get kickback for it. So we have corruption, we have the over-drugging of America. But by the way, Tom Anderson, FFR News, also did an excellent video on the impact of Big Pharma on today's society. So anyone with normal, everyday problems can go into the psychiatrist's office and be determined to have a mental illness. They have a manual called the DSM, the Diagnostic, forgot what the S stands for, but it's the Diagnostic something manual. Hey, something, there you go. And what it is, it's a book of so-called maladies or disorders that get in the book this way. A bunch of executives in the big pharma companies and the psychiatrists get together and they vote on what should be a disorder. It's not abnormal if someone you loved just died and you're upset. You're depressed. Of course you're depressed. Someone just died. It's normal. To me, it's healthy to grieve. Just because someone died in your family and you're having a rough time doesn't mean you go run and take the magic pill, because you're starting down a road that can lead you to disaster. It's happened in my family. My mother, my own mother, has been destroyed by pharmaceutical drugs. another story for another day. It really destroyed me. It destroyed our entire family, and it's nothing but destruction all around this whole pseudo psychiatry. These people are hurting people. They're hurting families out there. So when I hear that 25% of women have mental health issues, I say, I don't believe it. So today, back in the day, people toughed it out a little bit too much, right? It was a little bit too much the other way then. People dealt with too much without getting help, and sometimes they did need help. Today, there are people who don't really need help, and they're going for it, so now it's overdiagnosed. The thing that helps you the most when you are depressed from a death, a breakup, a marriage, a homesickness, whatever the case may be, failure at a job, failure in school, being picked on, the way you deal with that is to have a friend, family member, or someone else that you know and love and knows you, and you talk about it and you vent these things. It's a catharsis. That is the best therapy there is, because the only way you can conquer your problems is to turn around courageously and face them down, face your fears, and that's the way you conquer them. You don't run the other direction, take the magic pill, and think that life is going to be okay. But what that magic pill does for you, these antidepressants, these antipsychotics, these mood stabilizers, all these things, what it does is it puts you in a kind of blah state where you don't really feel anything. You haven't dealt with whatever it is that's making you depressed, and you're running from it now. You're masking it. And what happens is people have, if you're not having all kinds of side effects, which, by the way, they're not side effects, okay? They're effects, okay? This is what the drugs do to people. They destroy you mentally, and they're very addicting. What happens is, even if the drug works properly and does its job, and you don't have any major effects or side effects, what you are doing is you're avoiding the thing that is the cause of your depression. Whereas if you might grieve for 6 months or a year if someone dies, easily. But what you got to do is deal with it courageously. Talk about it. Mull it over in your head. Understand this is the way life is. Life has ups and downs. So if you went to a psychiatrist and you said, oh, geez, doc, I'm really happy when I'm happy and I'm really sad when I'm sad. Oh, well, you're obviously bipolar or you're manic. And they have a term for everything that is a normal condition in life. If a kid is a little bit rambunctious in school, especially like males are, little boys, they drug them. They say, oh, you have ADHD and you have ADD. Now, I don't doubt that there is a very small fraction of our society that there are kids that are way over the top. They're beyond normal rambunctious. And perhaps they may need some medication, but only after thorough study and thorough consultation, discussions with the family. You don't just walk into a doctor's office and 15 minutes later walk out with a script, okay? These doctors have no way to test. If you said, well, what's a chemical imbalance? What chemical? What chemical exactly is out of balance? Do I have too much serotonin? Too little of this? What? And can you give me a test? Is there a blood test? Is there a CAT scan? Is there an MRI? Is there something concrete that you can show me that I have this actual thing? And they can't. So it's a pseudoscience. It's all about pushing drugs on America and making a boatload of money along the way. It is one of the most evil scourges in society today, easily. All right? Look at our veterans. Our veterans come home and they are traumatized. Well, let's forget the fact that our Army and our Navy and our Air Force and our Marines, they pump them full of all kinds of experimental shit, because once you sign that dotted line, you have to take every shot they give you. You don't know what the hell's in that shit. So not only have they had to kill people, watch people be killed, be blown up with IEDs, and live with all these physical injuries, mental injuries, but when they come home and they need someone to talk to, need some heavy shit to get off their back, get off their shoulders, what do? Here you go. Take this. Guy goes and he takes the drugs and he comes back. He says, Doc, this shit is making me crazy. I need to get off this shit. Well, here, try this one instead. Are you kidding me? They'll send them 3, 4, 5 different kinds of drugs. Just tinkering. They're playing with these people. They're guinea pigs. It is disgusting. It's unacceptable. And it violates every little piece of sensibility I have in my heart, in my soul. It is a disgrace. Our veterans, our women, everyone. No one is immune to being diagnosed with something, because, hey, it's a bigger market, right? Now we can include little kids, we can drug them, we can drug our veterans, we can drug our old people in the nursing homes. Just drug everybody. Everybody's kind of, if you see all this strange behavior out there today, I guarantee you that pharmaceutical drugs are a huge part of it. Now, I know I'm off on a tangent right now. I will get back to women and why they're so unhappy, but I do want to talk about this right now. When you have a depression, or you're going through something that's really tough, that's what life is. Life at the end is a tragedy. This the Greeks knew very well. That's why they had tragedies, these plays where at the end everyone dies and there is no fucking happy ending. Excuse my French, because that's life. All right, we need, in the midst of this tragedy called life, we need to pull out whatever goodness we can from it. We need to enjoy every little bit that we can when we possibly can, because at the end, you're gonna pay the ultimate price. I have an old joke that I used to use. It's an analogy, rather. Life is like a big bag of weed that's fronted to you, right? And when it's all smoked up and gone, then you got to pay up. That's what life is. We use up life, and at the end, we return it. Life is borrowed. Life is not easy. There are tough moments in life, and you are guaranteed to go through some tough moments in life. But you will find that these moments that you make it through and you deal with successfully will forge who you are as a person. When you conquer these depressive times, these hard times, couple years down the road, you are much stronger for it, and you're much more able to deal with the next issue, instead of taking a drug and masking it. And how long do these people have to stay on these drugs? Well, if you ask the pharmaceutical industry or the psychiatrists, you have to stay on these drugs indefinitely. At what point am I over my depression? At what point can you start weaning me off of these addictive, psychotic drugs that destroy people's minds? When is enough enough? There's another analogy I like to use. It's not mine. I didn't come up with it. I've heard it. You use a canoe to cross a river, correct? You use the canoe, you get across the river, but you don't go through life carrying the canoe still, right? The stream represents a hard time, a section of danger that you have to pass. Once the danger is passed, you leave the canoe behind. At what point do we leave these antidepressants behind? At what point am I out of the woods, Doc? Oh, here, try this. Hey, maybe you need a mood stabilizer too, and take this too, and oh, you have this, that, and the other thing, and I have a pill for each of them. You have people on all kinds of medicines. Our veterans, that one is the one that pisses me off almost the most. But there's nothing worse than drugging children. These kids haven't even gotten a chance to enjoy life or to experience life, and you're already pumping their minds full of drugs. Well, guess what? Not everybody can be the top alpha male in school, and most people are going to get picked on at some point. Now, we've softened our people, especially our men. We've infantilized and feminized our men, emasculated them, to the point where our children are taught that anything hard that happens to them, anything that hurts their feelings, is unacceptable. And, oh, let me coddle you. Oh, are you okay? You were picked on? Were you bullied? When you deal with bullying, I've been bullied. I'm 5'7". I wasn't the big kid in school. I am not. There are teenagers taller than me. When you deal with that and you get through it, it forges who you are as a person. You become determined. It defines you. These moments that you make it through in life, that you should actually face these with I wouldn't say you should be happy to, but you should be anxious at the prospect of conquering this thing. Hey, this is a test. I'm going to find out who I am right now. How am I going to act? How am I going to react to this situation? Am I going to cower from it? Or am I going to face it boldly? Now, that's not to say you don't grieve. You have to allow yourself time to grieve. Okay? If at first you want to sit in your room and cry your eyes out for an entire day, do it. Do it, because when you swallow hard and ignore it and try to truck on like I'm Mr. Tough Guy, bad news, buddy, bad news, because that which you put off now will come back later, and it will come out in the wrong way, in the form of anger, and usually it'll be on the people you love the most. So, if you, especially men, because men feel like they have to be tough, especially the older generation, which you should be, but over a long haul. Grief is a many-stage thing. We've always heard about the stages of grief. Well, you need to grieve. If you want to cry, you cry. But you don't allow yourself to cry for a week straight. At some point, you have to stop feeling sorry for yourself and pick yourself up and try to move on. And then maybe a week later, couple days later, you feel sad again, you hear a song and something triggers you. Go by yourself, go be alone and grieve. Let it come out. Wallow in it. Do not run from your grief, because you need to purge it from you. Otherwise, sadness and grief, when you swallow it down and push it back down and ignore it, it comes back out in the most, well, I wouldn't say horrific, but it could be horrific. It comes out in the worst ways, and it exhibits itself as anger, discontent, grumpiness, short of patience, and those are the consequences of grief not dealt with. So yes, deal with your grief, but also use the people you have around you, your support group, to talk to them. If it's something that's very personal and you don't really want to talk about it, maybe you don't want to talk about it with people that you know because you're so embarrassed. For me, I like to talk to my friends. My friends are there for me and I for them. But if you need someone who doesn't know you, go to a psychologist, not a psychiatrist. Psychiatrists write the script. That's all they do. They don't do blood tests. They don't do any kind of test to determine what you have, because all their maladies and disorders are created out of whole cloth. They're inventions. There are no tests that can show what bipolar is. If you've been diagnosed as bipolar or manic-depressive, go and ask your doctor, hey doc, you got me on all these goddamn drugs. Are there any tests that you could do to show I have what you say I have? And if not, then why the hell you got me on these drugs? See, we have a tendency to trust these people. They have the white coat. They've got the little stethoscope that they never use. They got the pens in the pocket. And so we trust them. We've been taught in school to trust authority, to listen to authority, to obey, to not think for ourselves. But when you go through grief, that's an opportunity. It's an opportunity to jump a hurdle and feel good about yourself later. It's going to come down the road, even though it seems like it never will. When you're really depressed, it feels like it'll never end. This is the end of the world. It's never going to get any better, but trust me, it does. But first, you have to do the hard thing, and that is to allow that grief and pain to wash over you. Immerse yourself in it. Take it on fully. It will not break you. I promise you. You have to let it out. It's poison. You need to get the poison out of you. And the only way to do it is to face it courageously and deal with it. I know we've all dealt with deaths in our lives, and I've been to the point of absolute borderline madness where I cried so hard that I couldn't even get to sleep. I could not stop crying. You know when you're a little kid and you're crying and you can't stop with all that bullshit? Well, I experienced that at 44 years of age when my 20-year-old cat died. But you know what? I knew I had to endure that pain to get through it. I had to. That was my little buddy. We lived together for 20 years. But you also have to take perspective. Here I am feeling bad for myself. After a while, you start thinking, why am I still feeling bad for myself? I've purged most of this. And as a matter of fact, I shouldn't feel sad. I should feel lucky. I should feel happy and fortunate that I had 20 years to spend with this incredible animal. And then you start looking at it from a different perspective. Hey, this person might be gone, and I'm going to miss them dearly. I will never forget them. But how would they want you to react? How would they want you to stay in that condition forever? I know me, if I go before my friends, I want them to cry a little. I want them to be a little upset. But God damn it, after a few months, 6 months, after a year, I don't want to see my friends still grieving for me. You need to pick yourself up and move on, because life is for the living. Okay? Grieve. Go through the process. Deal with it. Don't just go to the drugs, because the drugs are going to destroy you. And they're going to destroy your whole family around you. More than likely. Now, there are people who have been helped by these things, but I don't believe that 99% of the people need them. We have been taught in our life, in our world today, that no one should ever deal with any pain or any tough problems. We could just take the magic pill and skate on by. No, that's a mistake. That is a huge mistake. And they are making huge profits off of the destruction of people's families, off of the destruction of individuals, off the destruction of our veterans, off children, off senior citizens. Imagine a senior citizen in a nursing home rotting away on those pills. Now, once you get to a certain stage of Parkinson's and Alzheimer, you're probably better off. But until you get to the extremities, you don't go to that option. It's just destroying people. You get the point. Now, to women being so unhappy today with feminism, I agree. I would go a step further and say that it's also because a man cannot be a man today. And what I mean by that is, back in the day, the man was the rock of the family. All right? He is the man that stays strong for everyone else. My opinion, if I was married, I would tell the kids, your mother is your boss, and I am the disciplinarian for everyone, including my wife. Now, that doesn't mean that a disciplinarian has to be a tyrant. I think women are unhappy partly because men are not strong anymore these days. They can't be because of the way the laws are set up in today's society. The way these divorce courts are set up, where a woman can just run you into court at any time and take all your money, your house, take your kids away from you and tear you to shreds. Men walk around on eggshells. Men can't yell at their wife when she gets out of control and starts acting hysterical. He can't set her straight because she can call the cops and have you arrested. So how could you be a man in today's society when our system will not let you be? I am convinced a woman wants a man to be firm but fair. Firm but fair. She doesn't want a pushover, and she's going to give you shit tests. She's going to push to see where you are. And it's not like she consciously says, let me see him. They do it instinctively because it's called a test for a reason. All right? If you can't pass the shit test, if you can't deal with a little bit of bullshit from a woman, how are you going to be there to deal with real problems for your family? How are you going to deal with someone attacking your wife or your children? If you can't deal with a little bit of a shit test. That's what women do, and it's healthy. It's healthy for the men in the long run. We don't like it when they start nagging and complaining and bitching and moaning, but you need to pass that test and prove to her that, hey, I'm not going to deal with your bullshit. All right? At the same time, I'm going to give you your props because a woman is the heart and soul of the family. She's the caretaker. She is the one that gives life. Well, I mean, what more precious thing, what more precious ability could you have than to give life? The man sustains life. The man defends life. The man makes sure that everything stays stable, that there's structure in the family. When you take those roles and reverse them, where the man is walking on eggshells and the woman, who is the natural follower, and I don't mean that in any degrading or condescending way, it's the man, it's the woman, and then it's the children. That is the proper structure. So in my family, I'm 46 years old next month, by the way, and I've never gotten married because I'm not going to sign a contract under these terms. I'm sorry, I refuse. I would have loved to have a family, but not in today's society. So the people who want to rip our families apart are winning because of the way the laws are. So the way I would have it is, my wife is the one, she's the boss of the house, and I'm the boss of the family. Okay? If in an ideal situation, I bring in the money, I provide for our family materially, and the buck stops with me. That's important. I would not want to burden my wife with the big decisions, the hard decisions, the tough decisions. That's my job. I'll relieve her of that burden and empower her to be the boss of the house. Now, if I see she's being a tyrant to the children, I'll have to straighten her out. We're going to have a talk. And that's the way it is. You have to be firm but fair. And a woman is attracted to that kind of man. She's not attracted to a man who walks on eggshells. This is why women are unhappy. Our men have been infantilized and emasculated. And it's not necessarily their fault. From when they were a kid and they're in class, men acting up, little boys, when they're little boys and they're acting up in class, it's like the nail that sticks up gets hammered down. They are reprimanded. Whereas little girls, they find it easier to sit in class and endure hours of schoolwork at a desk. Where a boy wants to get up, he wants to be physical, he wants to roughhouse, he wants to play with other kids. Now, you can't even play rough with other kids. You're a bully, or you can't, like, I don't even think they have dodgeball in school anymore because, somebody might lose. And then you have the participation trophies. Look, men, when they're little boys, they got to learn how to deal with failure. They got to learn how to deal with adversity. And if you deprive them from the opportunity of dealing with adversity, you are going to have an emasculated man. You show me the boy, you give me the boy, I'll show you the man. Or something like that. That's the way it works. But if little boys are being taught that you can't do anything, there's no roughhousing, there's no physical play, even in gym class you can't get physical. Boys like to roughhouse. Boys like to be cruel to each other. That's part of the deal. All right? I'm not saying kids, you should be cruel to each other overly, but that's what we do. We tease each other. And at the end of the day, if you tease someone and he deals with it admirably, guess what? He's part of the crew now, right? It's like the shit test, but it's between men. So a man can't be a man anymore. A boy can't even be a boy anymore. This is why women are so upset and dissatisfied in today's society. And yes, it is feminism. It is feminism, but where's the feminism coming from? I'll tell you where it's coming from. All this is communism/socialism. It's socialism at first, but it's slipping into communism. And I'll tell you why. Because, and never forget this, bankers love communism. Okay? Don't fool yourself. Bankers run this society. Foundations. They run this society through their tax-free foundations, their grant-making power, and their interlocking directorates on the boards of directors of all the corporations. Banks float the loans for all the major corporations and hence have the voting power. They own majority stakes in most of the corporations, and they use their money to create the society they want. Bankers do not want competition. They want to lock down the entire market for themselves and for all their corporations, including the pharmaceutical companies. That's them too. If you want somebody to get mad at, it's bankers. These are the same people who are breaking up our families, destroying our veterans, sending us off to war to die for nothing. These are the same people who are splitting up our society and dividing us along lines of politics, religion, race. And it's working. We are being divided on a daily basis. So under communism, what is communism? It's total control. It's where the state owns everything. And we already know bankers run this state because they've long since bought off all the judges and the politicians, and they own our courts. They own everything in this country. And if that sounds conspiratorial, I'm sorry. That's the way it is. I've been looking into this for 10 years, and this is what I've found. If you find that you don't like what I'm saying, I'm sorry. Do some research. So, these bankers have used things like feminism to destroy our families. It started long ago, around World War I, where when the men went to war, the women had to go to the factories and work, and then the kids were left alone. So guess what? Oh, don't worry, we'll take care of the kids. We'll set up public education. Used to be the woman would teach the kid. That is the foremost responsibility beyond clothing, feeding, and housing a child, is their education. The number one responsibility after those other three for a family is educating their kids. Well, we got both parents working now. Who's going to educate my kids? Oh, don't worry, you send them off to state school. Government education, where they teach our kids how to be obedient workers. Not how to think for themselves, but how to be obedient workers. And they take the nuts of these kids, they cut them right off so that there's nothing left, that these people will grow up into soft little babies that can't handle any adversity and will run at the first sight of blood. And these are not people who can stand up to tyrannical government. They're not men anymore. Men can't be men anymore. So, without going too far into it, bankers have split up the family and they're locking down the entire market for themselves so that there's no future competition. They don't want entrepreneurs coming up, starting new businesses and threatening their industries. They don't want competition. I could go into a whole thing about competition and how they've stifled, bankers have used government to police their large holdings and control of markets. So women, of course they're upset. Men aren't men anymore. And now you have the women are being indoctrinated. Everywhere they look, they see, be a little whore, be a little slut. Just like Tom Anderson was talking about on FFR News. He says, these girls, I forgot what he said, the gates are wide open, the pussy gates are wide open for men these days, because the girls don't understand how to be women, how to have a little decency. Men don't know how to be men, and women don't know how to be women. And it all starts early. These girls, even on Disney, you see these cartoons and the girls are depicted wearing skimpy little outfits, and they're teaching our daughters to be little sluts at an early age. And they have no honor anymore. There's no honor in a woman anymore. She'll just throw herself to any old man that comes down the street. And it's disgusting. It's terrible. It's awful. Yeah, sure, a young man is not going to complain. A 19-year-old man's not going to complain. Hey, because we're men. We're animals. We're like, yeah, I'm ready to go. It's good to go, girl. But really, a man wants that carnal passion. But what he really wants is he wants a woman that he can honor and respect. And they're not out there. They're not out there for the men. And for the women, she wants a strong man who's going to be firm and fair, but they're not out there. There's a bunch of beta male bitches who want to be your friend and I want to hold hands with you and walk on the beachy poo. That's fine. Yeah, that's great. You should be romantic at times, but you have to, when you're a man, you have to find a special balance. See, a woman wants you to be sensitive, but she doesn't want you to be a bitch. She wants you to be strong and firm, but she doesn't want you to be a tyrant. And you got to walk that balance. You got to get to know your woman, and you got to know how to play that balance. But men don't know how to be men, and women don't know how to be women. And that's why not just women are upset. Men are upset too. You have these things called MGTOW, men's rights organizations. Men going their own way. Society is in disarray. Our women are crying out for strength. They are crying out for men to be men. They're going to kick and scream and put up a fight and fuss and muss, but in the end, they want to be put in their place. They want structure. They don't want to be put in their place and degraded. You don't have to do it in that way, but you need to stand up for yourself. You don't let your woman push you around. You be fair, though. If she's right and she's got a point, you got to concede the point. Okay? That's part of being a man, is knowing when to admit you're wrong. Okay? But if you're right, and you know you're right, and she's wrong, and you know she's wrong, you never compromise on that point. You say, honey, look, I'm sorry. I know it's going to hurt your feelings, but this is the way it is. This is the way it has to be. And in a calm way, you explain it to her. If she's being shitty and she's flipping out, give it some time, let her go cool down, and then approach her later. Maybe come in with, a little surprise for her. Hey, let's go out to dinner, maybe surprise her with something, anything. That'll let her know. This is it's a way of saying, hey, look, I love you, but on this one you're wrong, and I can't concede the point. She will love you way more than if you give in to her demands when she's wrong. And you know you're right, but you give up anyway. That a woman doesn't want that kind of man. So we have all kinds of problems in our society, and you can see how linked up things are with the banking problems, with our money, our boys and girls in school learning how to be, I don't know what you call it, but they're not men and women. With the pharmaceutical companies destroying our minds. So it's not bad enough that men grow up to be little bitches and girls grow up to be little sluts and little sassy whores that are going to talk to you in any way she wants. And when you take a natural follower, okay, and like I said before, I don't mean that in a bad way. Men are leaders and women are followers when it comes to them getting together. Sure, there are some women who are leaders. They go in the corporate world and there are bosses. There are women who are bosses. We're talking in generalities now. When you take a follower, a natural-born follower, and you put her in a position of power over the natural-born leader, often she's going to act like a tyrant. Think of this. When you were in school and there was that punk kid, I'm talking to you men now, and there was that little punk kid that acted like a little bitch all the time, and he cried and bitched and moaned, and he never knew how to deal with his teasing and never knew how to laugh at himself and never got accepted in the crowd. When he becomes a CEO of a company, he's going to be a fucking tyrant because he's a natural-born follower. And when you put a follower in a position of authority, often they become tyrants. Our society is upside down today. When a woman has it over the man and she knows that she could just file for divorce at any time and she knows that she's got his balls in her pocketbook, guess what? Oftentimes she's going to act like a tyrant because natural-born followers are not used to wielding power. They are not used to being firm and fair. They don't know what that is. And so when you give the natural-born follower that power, boy, look out. Look out. You've got serious problems. So I think I'm gonna stop it right there. That's what's going on in our society. Go check out Tom Anderson. He's a really thoughtful guy. FFR News. He's slogging it out day after day, putting vids up. He's really working hard. Go see him. Go check him out. Subscribe. All right? All right, I love you guys. Stay strong, stay firm and fair. And ladies, try to have some honor, okay? It's not your fault that you've been trained to be promiscuous, to be bitchy, to act like you have the world coming to you, to act like you're a victim when you know damn well you got it good, especially in our society. And men, stop acting like little bitches. Stand up and be a man. All right? That's all I can say. We're all guilty. We've all made these mistakes, which is how I know what I'm talking about now, because I've experienced enough life to know. All right. YouTubeminds.com. Awesome. We had a good talk today.